Hello and welcome to my channel. My name is Sotonye Fiesimama. If you are a subscriber, thanks for your support. If you're a returning visitor, I appreciate you dropping by again. Why not subscribe so that you receive updates of my video uploads? If you're here for the first time, welcome to my channel where I discuss events that occurred on this day in history with a view to informing, hopefully entertaining, and most importantly, learning lessons from positive events and mistakes of the past, and hopefully not repeating those mistakes, because as the saying goes, history tends to repeat itself. So guys, let's get cracking with today's important events as recorded in history. First, in our usual tradition, we'll start by rolling back the blind to the year 1295. The man pictured here on his throne, standing on his throne, interestingly, is Maḥmūd Ghāzān. He was the most prominent of the Khans, which was a Mongol dynasty. So this was the day that he was formally enthroned. Now this Mongol dynasty was ruling over Iran at the time, so he was the most prominent of the Khans to rule Iran on this day in 1295. So again, this was the day in 1295 that Maḥmūd Ghāzān was formally enthroned over Iran. Let's move on to the year 1793. The guy pictured here is Stephen Austin, founder of the principal settlements of English-speaking people in Texas in the 1820s, when that territory was still part of Mexico. He died on the 27th of December 1836. He was an American impresario known as the father of Texas, hence the capital of Texas being Austin. So Austin, Texas was named after Stephen Austin, founder of the principal settlements of English-speaking peoples in Texas. He led the second and ultimately the successful colonization of the region by bringing 300 families from the United States to the region in 1825. Born in Virginia and raised in southeastern Missouri, Austin served in the Missouri Territorial Legislature before moving to Arkansas Territory and later Louisiana. So that's Stephen Austin, founder of the principal settlement of English-speaking people in Texas in the 1820s. So at this time, Texas wasn't part of the Union. So that's why, if you were listening carefully, I did say that he led the second and ultimately the successful colonization of the region by bringing 300 families from the United States to the region, which is now part of the Union. So born on this day, Stephen Austin, founder of Texas, essentially. 1793 was the year he was born. Okay, let's move on to the same year. This time it's in France. So while this was happening in the United States, or what was to be known, what was later known as the United States, there was trouble brewing in France. So this was the day that social reformer and feminist Olympe de Gouges, who challenged conventional views on a number of matters, especially the role of women as citizens, was executed by guillotine. Olympe de Gouges was also a playwright and political activist whose writings on women's rights and abolitionism reached a large audience in various countries. She became an outspoken advocate against the slave trade in the French colonies in 1788. At the same time, she began writing political pamphlets. Today, she is perhaps best known as an early women's rights advocate who demanded that French women be given the rights as French men. In her Declaration of the Rights of Women and of the Female Citizen in 1791, she challenged the practice of male authority and the notion of male-female inequality. She was executed by guillotine during the Reign of Terror from 1793 to 1794. For attacking the regime of the revolutionary government and for her association with the Girondists. So that was a long one, but 1793 was the year, the day. Obviously it was the 3rd of November. Sadly, Olympe de Gouges was executed by guillotine. All she was doing was fighting for women, and she paid the ultimate price. Well, this seems to be a week of women's rights, and so we shouldn't forget the women who fought for the freedoms that other women have today, and ultimately for the rest of us as well. Those of us who are men as well, we wouldn't have liked to see our mothers or sisters, cousins, friends being treated badly because of their sex. That is absolutely horrible. Okay, let's move on now to the year 1896. So on this day, J.H. Hunter, unfortunately, his picture could not be found anywhere. I wasn't able to find his picture, but he invented the portable weighing scales. He was an African-American inventor, patented the weighing scale on this day in 1896. The patent number is 570533. So you can go check it out. The weighing scale is used to determine the weight or mass of an object or individual. Now, it goes without saying. Okay, 1921. On this day, Charles Bronson was born, pictured here. Full name and real name, Charles Dennis Buczynski. He died on the 30th of August 2003. He was an American actor, often cast in the role of a police officer, gunfighter, or vigilante in revenge-oriented plot lines. He had long-term collaborations with film directors Michael Winner and J. Lee Thompson, and appeared in 15 films with his second wife, Jill Ireland. At the height of his fame in the 1970s, he was the world's #1 box office attraction, commanding $1 million per film. Wow. So that's Charles Bronson, who was born on this day in 1921. 1933, also born Amartya Kumar Sen, pictured right here. He is an Indian economist who since 1972 has taught and worked in the United Kingdom and the United States. Sen has made contributions to welfare economics, social choice theory, economic and social justice, economic theories of famines, decision theory, development economics, public health, and measures of well-being of countries. Again, Amartya Kumar Sen, Indian economist, born on this day. So happy birthday to Amartya Kumar Sen. Let's move on to the year 1949. 16 years later, Larry Holmes, pictured right here, was born. He is an American former professional boxer who competed from 1973 to 2002. He grew up in Easton, Pennsylvania, which led to his boxing nickname of the Easton Assassin. Holmes, whose left jab is rated among the best in boxing history, held the WBC heavyweight title from 1978 to 1983. The Ring Magazine and Lineal heavyweight titles from 1980 to 1985, and the inaugural IBF heavyweight title from 1983 to 1985. During his only title reign, he defended his title against 19 fighters, the second most in history behind Joe Louis. He also holds the record for the longest individual heavyweight title streak in the modern boxing history. Holmes is one of only 5 boxers, along with Joe Frazier, Ken Norton, Leon Spinks, and Trevor Berbick, to defeat Muhammad Ali. He is the only one to have stopped Ali. So that is Larry Holmes, born on this day in 1949. Also in 1949, British editor Anna Wintour was born. She was who, as the longtime editor of American Vogue, became one of the most powerful figures in fashion. Dame Anna Wintour, DBE, Dame of the British Empire, is a British-American journalist and editor who has been editor-in-chief of Vogue since 1988 and artistic director for Condé Nast, Vogue's publisher, since 2013. With her trademark page boy bob haircut, as you can see pictured here, and dark sunglasses pictured here as well, Wintour has become an important figure in much of the fashion world. Widely praised for her eye for fashion trends and her support for younger designers. Her reportedly aloof and demanding personality has earned her the nickname Nuclear Wintour. So like a nuclear winter, it's a play on words there. Her father, Charles Wintour, editor of the London Evening Standard from 1959 to 1976, consulted her on how to make the newspaper relevant to the youth of the era. She became interested in fashion as a teenager. Her career in fashion journalism began at two British magazines. A former personal assistant, Lauren Weisberger, wrote the 2003 best-selling roman à clef, The Devil Wears Prada, later made into a successful 2006 film starring Meryl Streep as Miranda Priestley, a fashion editor believed to be based on Wintour. If you haven't watched The Devil Wears Prada, go check it out. Absolutely fantastic film. In 2009, she was the focus of another film, R.J. Cutler's documentary, the September issue. So, this is Anna Wintour, whose persona is based on the Devil Wears Prada. The Devil Wears Prada. Meryl Streep, who starring Meryl Streep as Miranda Priestley. So Miranda Priestley's character is based on Anna Wintour, the real life Anna Wintour. I hope that came out right, guys. I'm sure you get what I'm trying to say. Okay, so let's move on. 1952, Roseanne Barr was born on this day. Roseanne Barr is an American comedian, an actress. Full name Roseanne Sherry Barr. She is a producer as well. She's a writer and presidential candidate. I didn't know this. This is news to me. Barr began her career in stand-up comedy before gaining acclaim in the television sitcom Roseanne. She won an Emmy and a Golden Globe Award for Best Actress for her work on the show. Barr became a stand-up comedian in 1980. In the late 1980s and early 1990s, she gained fame through her role in Roseanne and other performances. So that's Roseanne Barr, who was born on this day in 1952. American comedian, actress, presidential candidate as well. Interesting. Okay, 2 years later in 1954. I like her top, by the way, her ethnic dress. 1954. Henri Benoit Matisse died. He was a French artist, as you might have noticed. He was known for both his use of color and his fluid and original draftsmanship. He was a draftsman, printmaker, and sculptor, but is known primarily as a painter. Matisse is commonly regarded, along with Pablo Picasso, as one of the artists who best helped to define the revolutionary developments in the visual arts throughout the opening decades of the 20th century, responsible for significant development in painting and sculpture. So I'll show you some of his paintings. That is an Henri-Émile Benoit Matisse painting, Henri Matisse for short. Quite interesting paintings, actually. Okay, so let's move on to the year 1957. We're now in the Soviet Union, what used to be known as the Soviet Union, and this dog called Laika was launched into space via the satellite Sputnik 2, the first living creature to be shot into space and to orbit the Earth. The year again was 1957. Laika the most famous dog that ever lived, went into space on this day in 1957. 1978, Dominica achieved full independence on this day. So that's where the Dominican Republic is located. If you recognize the countries around that area, then you would know where Dominica is located. So that's the red symbol there on the map. I'll show you some more pictures as well. They achieved full independence with Patrick Rowland John as its first prime minister. So, as promised, more pictures of the country. Absolutely beautiful. And the people of Dominican Republic, beautiful women, handsome dudes. And that's the country. So, independence achieved on this day in 1978. Okay, let's move on now to the year 1992. Democratic politician Carol Moseley Braun became the first African-American woman elected to the US Senate. That happened on this day in 1992. Carol Moseley Braun, pictured here, elected to the United States Senate. There's a quote from here which says, "I'd come back after having served as ambassador to New Zealand and found that I had real concerns about the direction in which this country was headed." I guess that's what informed her decision to run for Senate, and she was elected to the US Senate on this day. So, Carol Moseley Braun. 1998, unfortunately, Bob Kane, pictured here, died. He was an American cartoonist who created, with Bill Finger, the comic book characters of Batman and Robin. More pictures of this interesting character, Bob Kane. It's him, it's his comic, Detective Comics, him and his character, Batman. Again, Batwoman, the real Batwoman this time. So that's Bob Kane, who died on this day in 1998, American cartoonist. 2014, last but not least, on this day, this building, the One World Trade Center, opened in New York City on the site of the former World Trade Center complex, which had been largely destroyed in the September 11th, 2001 attacks. So the One World Trade Center opened on this day, November 3rd, 2014. I'm sure we all know where we were when the original World Trade Center towers came down. I know where I was. I was at the job interview, came back home and saw these two towers, just falling, exploding and crashing, and I thought this was a movie, But yeah, history, sadly, 3,000 lives were lost. Gone but not forgotten. And those of you who are watching this who lost loved ones or know, someone who knew someone who died there, listen, my heart goes out to you today. But it's nice that the United States and the world, I guess, were able to put funds together and were determined to memorialize the lives of those, memorialize those who lost their lives on the tragic events of 9/11 in 2001. This is an absolutely beautiful picture of the New York skyline. Absolutely beautiful. I like the play of the colors here, the brown, the gold, and the black and gray. It's beautiful. Okay, guys, on that note, we have come to the end of Today in History for the 3rd of November. Again, I appreciate your support. Don't take your support for granted. I hope you enjoyed watching this. Come back tomorrow, November 4th, for another edition of Today in History. Do not forget to subscribe by clicking the notification bell if you haven't done so already, so that you receive updates of my video uploads. Like as well. If you haven't shared this video, share this with your family and friends, okay? Take care, guys. Stay safe. See you tomorrow. Bye-bye.